Okay, listen. If you want to find Luke, we'll take you to him, okay?
All right.
All right, just follow us.
Every Friday night between 1979 and 1985, millions of Americans gathered around their TVs to watch an orange 1969 Dodge Charger jump over creeks, slide through mud, and outrun incompetent cops in rural Georgia. The horn blasted Dixie, the Duke boys slid through the windows, and Daisy's shorts got shorter every season. The Dukes of Hazzard wasn't prestige television. It was a moonshine-fueled car chase with a laugh track, and it became the second highest-rated show on television, beaten only by Dallas. The General Lee received more fan mail than any human actor. Catherine Bach's legs got insured for $1 million, and the show destroyed so many Dodge Chargers they had to hunt them down on the streets like endangered species. But behind all those jumps and yeehaws, the production was absolute chaos held together with welded doors, lies, and one actor who secretly became richer than anyone realized. The Dukes of Hazzard ran for 147 episodes across 7 seasons, turned cut-off denim shorts into a permanent fashion category, and made a car more famous than most movie stars. Cousins Bo and Luke Duke, their cousin Daisy, and Uncle Jesse.
Oh, now, wait a minute. Maybe y'all weren't watching the same movie that we just saw, but from what I saw, Boss here couldn't even hardly keep up with my Uncle Jesse.
Spent every episode outsmarting the corrupt Boss Hogg and his bumbling Sheriff Roscoe in fictional Hazzard County. The show generated millions in merchandise, launched a country music career, and made one casting director accept a beer from an 18-year-old liar. The number one fact on this list proves the Duke boys reunited in the most unexpected place. Stick around for it. Here are 15 weird facts about the Dukes of Hazzard that'll change how you see Hazzard County. If you love the show, hit like and subscribe for more classic TV deep dives. Now, let's slide through the window. 15. Uncle Jesse was an oil tycoon. On screen, Uncle Jesse was a backwoods moonshiner who wore overalls, dispensed folksy wisdom, and acted like a $20 bill was a small fortune.
The only smoke of yours I smelled was when you stop and get them barbecued boar ribs every 10 miles.
Off-screen, Denver Pyle was loaded, not from moonshine, from outsmarting actual oil tycoons. Before the Dukes of Hazzard, Pyle was best known for playing Briscoe Darling on The Andy Griffith Show. But while most actors chased their next role, Pyle chased a different payday. He started buying up old oil wells in the Dallas area that investors had written off as worthless. Oil was selling for just $2.15 a barrel, and everyone thought he was wasting his money. Then came the 1973 oil crisis. Prices skyrocketed overnight, and new extraction technologies suddenly made those abandoned wells profitable. By 1981, Pyle had made more money from oil speculation than from 3 decades of acting in Hollywood. And yet, he kept showing up to play Uncle Jesse. When asked why, Pyle said, "Acting provides the cash flow I need for oil speculation. And besides that, I like acting. It's fun." So, while Uncle Jesse worried about the mortgage, Denver Pyle was using his TV paycheck to fund his next oil deal. The beard said, "country wisdom," but the bank account said, "I could buy this whole county." After the show ended, Pyle kept acting and investing. His final role was reprising Uncle Jesse in the 1997 reunion movie, filmed just before he passed away. Not a bad exit for a guy who turned rejected oil wells into a fortune. 14. One jump, one car, every episode. That opening credits jump, where the General Lee sails over Sheriff Roscoe's police car, happened on November 11th, 1978, before the show even premiered. The stunt crew loaded the trunk with hundreds of pounds of concrete to prevent flipping, aimed it at a dirt ramp, and sent it flying. 16 feet high, 82 feet long. When that Charger came down, it was obliterated, frame bent beyond repair, suspension destroyed, completely undrivable. That car, known as Lee 1, was the very first General Lee ever built. Here's the irony. Even though Lee 1 was totaled on impact and never appeared in another driving scene, it's the only General Lee in every single episode of the series. That same clip ran in the opening credits all 147 times. After the jump, the wrecked car sat in an Atlanta junkyard for 23 years. Nobody recognized it because it had been repainted before being scrapped. In 2006, Indianapolis DJ Travis Bell found it, restored it, and sold it to golfer Bubba Watson at a Barrett-Jackson auction for $110,000. The most famous General Lee made exactly one jump, got destroyed doing it, spent 2 decades rusting in a scrap heap, and became a 6-figure collector's item. Peak Hazard County. 13. Waylon's mom complained, so he wrote a lyric. For 7 years, Waylon Jennings was the voice of the Dukes of Hazzard, narrating every episode as the Balladeer and singing the theme song Good Old Boys that hit #1 on the country charts and peaked at number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1980. But Jennings' face never appeared on screen. The opening credits only showed his hands playing guitar from the neck down. Week after week, season after season, just hands. His mother watched religiously, waiting for her son to appear. She kept asking, "When are you going to be on the show? I keep watching and I never see you." It bothered her enough that she complained directly to Waylon. So, when Jennings recorded the extended single version of Good Old Boys, he added an extra verse that didn't appear in the TV version. "You know my mama loves me, but she doesn't understand. They keep showing my hands and not my face on TV." The joke became one of the most memorable parts of the song. Jennings finally appeared on screen in the Season 7 episode Welcome, Waylon Jennings, which aired September 28, 1984. By that point, he'd been the invisible narrator for 6 years. His mother finally got to see her son on her favorite show. But it took him turning her complaint into a chart-topping lyric first. 12. Only 17 General Lees survived. The Dukes of Hazzard destroyed over 300 Dodge Chargers during production. Today, only about 17 to 20 authentic screen-used General Lees exist. And those survivors are worth more than most people's retirement funds. We're talking upwards of $250,000 for a genuine on-screen General Lee. Depending on condition and how many jumps it survived. That's, I could buy a house in the Midwest, or this car that once cleared a barn, expensive. The kicker? In 2008, John Schneider sold one of his replica General Lees, not even a screen-used car, just a really solid copy owned by Bo himself, for $230,000. A replica. Almost $250,000. The scarcity is real. The production destroyed Chargers so fast that finding an intact survivor is like finding a unicorn. Most ended up crushed in junkyards with bent frames and destroyed suspensions. The 17 to 20 that made it through are now worth more than luxury cars, college educations, and probably the house you're living in. The show didn't just blow up cars for fun. It accidentally created some of the most expensive TV memorabilia on the planet. That orange blur you saw every Friday night is now a 6-figure investment. 11. The beer audition. When producers were casting Bo Duke, they wanted a genuine country boy in his mid-20s from Georgia. What walked through the door was an 18-year-old kid from Mount Kisco, New York, who decided to lie about everything. John Schneider borrowed a beat-up pickup truck, wore a greasy baseball cap, and grew out a week's worth of stubble. He brought a 6-pack of beer. He put on his best Southern accent and told the casting director he was 22 from Smallville, Georgia, which isn't even a real place. Then he sat in the waiting room and drank one of the beers. When they called him in, he offered a beer to the casting director. Not standard audition protocol. But combined with the truck, the beard, the accent, and the audacity, it worked. Schneider got the part on the spot. Best part? He didn't even know how to drive the General Lee when he got the job. He had to learn after being cast.
Hey, anytime you're ready. All right, join the Air Force and see the world. You better get moving. We are going to see the world.
The studio didn't learn the truth until the show became a massive hit. Way too late to recast. Schneider kept up the charade for weeks. The producers believed they'd found a young Georgia boy who could drive like a maniac and charm his way out of anything. They'd actually found a cocky New York teenager who could lie like a maniac and charm his way into anything. Close enough for Hazzard County. 10. Uncle Jesse accused the studio of fancy bookkeeping. By spring 1982, the Dukes of Hazzard was a merchandising empire. Hot Wheels cars, T-shirts, lunchboxes, model kits, all featuring Tom Wopat and John Schneider's faces. The stars weren't seeing a dollar from any of it. As Season 5 filming approached, Wopat and Schneider refused to show up, demanding merchandising royalties. Catherine Bach almost walked too, but Wopat and Schneider convinced her to stay. If you leave, there might not be a show to come back to. Then Denver Pyle gave a UPI interview on May 29, 1982, that basically accused the studio of shady dealing.
Why don't you go into town and get some? I need a breather anyway. I think I'm getting overventilated.
He called it a family squabble and said he thought it would work out. Then he added this: bootleg merchandising has a lot to do with the situation. Or maybe there has been some fancy bookkeeping going on. I don't know. All I know is I've been getting my check. Uncle Jesse just suggested Warner Brothers might be cooking the books. On the record, in UPI, the producers hired two lookalikes, Byron Cherry and Christopher Mayer, introduced them as cousins Coy and Vance Duke, and kept filming. The replacements appeared in most of Season 5. Ratings collapsed. By early 1983, Warner Brothers settled. Wopat and Schneider came back, and Coy and Vance disappeared. Barely a mention, just a line about tending a sick relative. The walkout proved the Duke boys were irreplaceable, and Pyle's instinct about that fancy bookkeeping was probably dead on. 9. Waylon fought addiction while narrating. Behind that warm, laid-back voice narrating Bo and Luke's adventures, Waylon Jennings was fighting a battle most viewers never knew about. For years during the show's run, Jennings struggled with severe addiction that was destroying his health and draining his finances. The man who sounded so calm every Friday night was barely holding it together behind the scenes. Jennings finally got clean in spring 1984. By the time he made his first on-screen appearance in Welcome Waylon Jennings on September 28, 1984, he was about 6 months sober. The timing wasn't planned, it just happened to coincide with one of the most important turning points of his life. The balladeer made it through. But for years, the voice of Hazzard County was coming from someone fighting his own war that had nothing to do with Boss Hogg or crooked sheriffs. The irony is that Jennings' narration always sounded so steady, so grounded, so perfectly at ease. That's what made him so good at the job, and that's what made the reality so much harder. The show gave Jennings a steady paycheck and a platform during some of his darkest years. When he finally appeared on screen, clean and healthy, it was a victory nobody watching realized they were witnessing. 8. The tablecloth poodle skirt. Picture this. You're Catherine Bach at your Daisy Duke audition. The costume they want you to wear is a poodle skirt that matches the boar's nest tablecloths, plus go-go boots, plus a tight white turtleneck, plus a blonde wig. Because creator Guy Waldron was obsessed with Dolly Parton. Bach looked at that outfit and said, "You want me to match the tablecloth? That's demeaning to women." The producers insisted it was the vision, so Bach asked them to walk across the street to a nearby Italian restaurant.
Well, bye-bye.
Hey, where are you going?
I am going to Mr. Sellers to get that dress I want so bad because I know you're going to pay me back leastwise as soon as Boss cashes that check.
Sure enough, older waitresses were wearing poodle skirts that matched the tablecloths. Bach made her case, and the producers agreed to let her bring her own outfit the next day. She showed up in a homemade t-shirt, cut-off denim shorts she could never get even, and cowboy boots. The producers loved it. Then CBS censors stepped in. The shorts were too revealing for family television. Someone came up with a brilliant compromise. Make Catherine wear pantyhose under the shorts so her legs would be covered. Here's the irony. The pantyhose made her legs stand out more. Instead of toning down the look, the sheer nylon highlighted every curve and drew even more attention. The plan backfired spectacularly. Bach's legs ended up insured by Lloyd's of London for $1 million, and Daisy Dukes entered the fashion lexicon forever. All because she refused to dress like furniture, and CBS tried to censor her with hosiery. 7. The 1-hour poster. When Warner Brothers approached Catherine Bach about a promotional poster, they wanted the Farrah Fawcett formula: bikini, baby oil, slicked back wet hair, inch-long fingernails. Full glamour, Bach said absolutely not. "That's not my character. I'm an actress, not a beauty pageant girl. I'm going to wear my own clothes and shoot my own poster." Warner Brothers said, "Fine, but we're not paying for it." Bach said no problem. She grabbed those cut-off shorts, made a red and white top, did her own makeup, picked some daisies, and called a friend with a camera. They shot the entire poster in 1 hour. 1 hour total. No professional photographer, no studio lighting, no art direction, no hair and makeup team. That poster sold 5 million copies and became one of the most iconic images of the 1980s. Nancy Reagan even took a liking to it when Bach visited the White House. The kicker? Bach's talent agency had fired her before she got the Daisy Duke role, telling her she was way too exotic and just not television material because she was half Mexican and half German. Her audition was a fluke. Her husband worked with the creator's writing partner. She reluctantly went, got the part 2 weeks later, created her own iconic look, and shot her own legendary poster entirely on her own terms. Warner Brothers spent $0 on that poster. It made them millions. 6. The genius in the white suit. Sorrel Book was a legitimate genius. Valedictorian of his high school class, enrolled at Columbia University at 16, graduated by 19. Then Yale for his Master of Fine Arts, Korean War counterintelligence officer, and fluent in 6 languages: English, French, Japanese, Spanish, Russian, and Italian. He also had working knowledge of Arabic, Mandarin, and Swedish. Before the Dukes of Hazzard, Book had built a serious resume: Broadway, an Emmy nomination, standout parts on MASH, Columbo, and All in the Family. But to most of America, he'll always be Boss Hogg. Here's the twist. Book was only 5'6" and weighed about 185 pounds during filming. To bring Boss Hogg to life, he wore padding that expanded his waistline to a full 5 feet around. That massive belly, costume work, and that syrupy southern drawl, he modeled it after U.S. Senators Sam Ervin and Strom Thurmond. The man did research for Boss Hogg. So when you see him waddling through Hazzard County in a 3-piece white suit yelling at a basset hound, remember, that's a Yale-educated, multilingual counterintelligence officer wearing sofa cushions and turning Southern politics into comedy gold. After the show ended, Book became a prolific voice actor and guest conducted the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. Because of course he did. He passed away in 1994, but his legacy as both a classically trained actor and TV's most unforgettable county commissioner lives on. 5. Uncle Jesse dies in the original. Long before Bo and Luke were jumping creeks in slow motion with a banjo soundtrack, the Dukes of Hazzard started as a little-known 1975 film called Moonrunners, written and directed by Guy Waldron, who later created the show. The movie followed 2 cousins bootlegging moonshine for their Uncle Jesse in Shiloh County, Georgia. Sound familiar? It had everything: a souped-up car, crooked Sheriff Roscoe Coltrane, car chases, outlaw drama, and Waylon Jennings as narrator. Even Ben Jones, who played Cooter on the TV show, appeared as a federal agent. But Moonrunners wasn't family-friendly. It was grittier, more violent, and characters faced actual consequences. Uncle Jesse dies in the film. There's an affair subplot. The cousins use explosive arrows to blow up a moonshine factory. People get hurt. It's a completely different tone. When Waldron adapted the concept for CBS, he toned it way down. Less violence, more laughs, and freeze-frame endings where nobody got seriously hurt. The network wanted something families could watch together, not a gritty Southern crime drama. So, the Dukes came from a movie where Uncle Jesse died, and cousins blew things up with explosive arrows. CBS turned it into a show where the worst thing that happened was Boss Hogg's latest scheme getting foiled. The contrast is almost shocking. Moonrunners was what the Dukes could have been if the network hadn't decided Hazzard County should be a place where nobody really got hurt. 4. The cast boycotted the reboot. You'd think a big screen reboot would be the perfect chance to bring back the original cast for nostalgic cameos. But no, not even close. John Schneider, Tom Wopat, and Catherine Bach all took one look at the 2005 movie script and politely declined their cameo offers. And when we say politely declined, we mean they probably read 2 pages and ran from the room. Ben Jones, who played Cooter, took it even further. He called the film sleazy, boycotted the premiere, and publicly said it had nothing in common with the original show's spirit. This came from a guy who spent 7 seasons pretending to fix cars held together with duct tape and prayer, when the very people who made the show iconic actively distanced themselves from a reboot, passing up easy money and fresh exposure. That's not just a red flag. That's a signal flare visible from space. The movie went for raunchy humor and crude jokes instead of the family-friendly tone that made the show work. Jessica Simpson's Daisy Duke was played for sex appeal in a way that felt completely different from Catherine Bach's character, who could shoot, drive, and outsmart everyone while wearing those shorts. The cast knew what made the original special, and they wanted no part of what the movie became. When even Cooter calls your movie sleazy, you've lost the plot. 3. Uncle Jesse's Pet Raccoon. The Dukes of Hazzard gave us moonshine-fueled car chases, corrupt small-town officials, and 2 good old boys who avoided prison by driving really fast. So naturally, the animated version asked, what if we took all that and added an international car race and a raccoon named Smokey? In The Dukes, which launched in 1983, the Dukes enter a globe-spanning race to win prize money that will save the family farm. Boss Hogg, Sheriff Roscoe, and Roscoe's dog, Flash, join the race, planning to cheat their way to victory. Each episode kicked off with Uncle Jesse reading a letter aloud to his pet raccoon, Smokey, updating him on the latest racing adventures, because apparently in the early 80s, the target audience for high-speed chase recaps was small woodland creatures. But the premise gets wilder. When the cartoon premiered, Bo and Luke were missing thanks to the contract dispute. So the cartoon starred replacement cousins Coy and Vance, the backup band no one paid to see. For one whole season, kids watched animated Coy and Vance race across the globe like they were the real stars. Then Tom Wopat and John Schneider settled with CBS, and at the beginning of Season 2, Coy and Vance magically disappeared, while Bo and Luke reappeared. No explanation, no farewell, just a hard swap. The Dukes lasted 20 episodes, but it delivered slapstick action, cartoon logic, and Uncle Jesse's raccoon sidekick, who somehow made more sense than Coy and Vance ever did. At least Smokey didn't get kicked to the curb after one season. 2. The One Direction Stunt Driver. Ever notice the Dukes' signature 2-wheel driving stunts almost always ride up on the driver's side, with passenger wheels hugging the ground? Same with the sheriff's cars. That wasn't a coincidence. It was all because of one man, Buzz Bundy, a ski car legend who pulled off most of those wild stunts. The kicker? Buzz could only do it with the driver's side in the air. He tried flipping it the other way, but physically couldn't. He compared it to being right-handed or left-handed, except instead of riding, he was tilting a 3,000-pound car sideways at highway speed. So anytime a script called for that stunt, directors had 2 choices: rewrite it to match Buzz's handedness, or find someone else bold enough to try it the other way. They stuck with Buzz. His skill wasn't just rare, it was Hollywood elite. He was the go-to specialist for 2-wheel stunts across the industry, performing the same feat on Knight Rider, The Fall Guy, and countless movies. If you saw a car balancing on 2 wheels in the 1980s, there was a good chance Buzz Bundy was behind the wheel. Compared to the equipment-assisted stunts in the 2005 Dukes movie, Buzz's work hits different. No rigs, no wires, just precision driving and pure nerve. Buzz Bundy passed away in 2020, but his legacy lives on in every 2-wheeled stunt that made our childhoods feel like magic, and the fact he could only do it one direction makes it even more impressive. 1. The Smallville Reunion. Here's a piece of television meta-magic that probably flew right over your head. In 2006, during Smallville's 5th season, there's an episode called Exposed, where Kansas Senator Jack Jennings shows up at the Kent farm. His car? A 1968 Dodge Charger. Blue instead of orange, but definitely General Lee adjacent. The kicker: Senator Jack Jennings was played by Tom Wopat, Luke Duke, and Jonathan Kent was played by John Schneider, Bo Duke himself. Both Duke boys reunited on screen with a Dodge Charger doing car stunts. Even Wopat's character name was a tribute. Jack Jennings was obviously a nod to Waylon Jennings, the Dukes' narrator and theme song performer. It was basically a stealth Dukes of Hazzard reunion, disguised as a Smallville episode. The producers knew exactly what they were doing, and for fans who caught it, it was like catching up with old friends. Bo and Luke, together again, with a Charger, pulling stunts. Just like old times, except this time, Bo was playing a father figure, and Luke was playing a politician. The episode didn't make a big deal about it. There was no winking at the camera or explicit Hazzard County references. It was just there for people who knew, and if you knew, it was perfect. After 7 seasons of jumping cars and outsmarting Boss Hogg, after contract disputes and replacement cousins, the Duke boys found their way back together on a completely different show. And they brought a Dodge Charger with them. That's the most fitting ending possible. The Duke boys never really left. They just found a new county to protect. So, there you have it. 15 weird facts proving the show was stranger behind the scenes than anything Boss Hogg ever schemed up. Which fact shocked you the most? Drop a comment below, and if you enjoyed this ride through Hazzard County, hit like and subscribe for more classic TV history. Until next time.